Even when I was quite young, I always planted a vegetable garden, probably 5th grade, along about in there, maybe even a little before then. And then when I got into 8th grade, I suddenly got interested in ornamental plants and wildflowers, and from then on I knew that's what I wanted to make a living with, is something with plants.
Wes would spend his entire professional career working with plants as a professor of botany, retiring from Eastern Illinois University after 27.5 years. After moving to Charleston in the 1960s, he sought out a piece of land not too far from town, hoping it would include some trees and a creek. What he bought was farmland with a limited number of trees, a creek, and a lot of work.
But I decided to try and clean up this valley back of the house because that was an abandoned pasture with grass several feet high and blackberries and poison ivy and old machinery scattered around and the dead elms. And the next spring I started planting back there. Little tiny things that didn't cost very much. And a lot of the things I dug up along the woods, the roadsides and the woods, and brought in little seedling dogwoods and things like that.
With plenty of space to spare and a degree in botany, Wes took on the challenge of growing non-native and rare plants.
A lot of them died, but a few of them made it, and some of them are pretty big plants now. I've been quite interested in our American native magnolias, most of which are just not growing. Now there's several, of course, that are. I'm growing the Ben Franklin tree, the Franklinia, and I remember reading about that in the past and thought that we probably just couldn't grow it here. In fact, when I lived in Maryland, one of the garden centers I went to had little plants of them in pots. They only charged a couple dollars for. And I brought back a few plants from this garden center, but I thought Franklinia probably wouldn't make it here, but it does surprisingly well here.
Wes finds his interesting plants from mail-order nurseries on the east or west coast. But plants alone won't guarantee success, so I asked him what was his secret.
A lot of it is luck, but a lot of it is peat moss. Massive amounts of peat moss in the soil. Our soil is rich here as far as minerals, and it's a matter of adding humus plus making the soil somewhat acid for a lot of these plants that want an acid soil. Our soils tend to be kind of neutral or slightly alkaline around here.
Sphagnum peat moss and old sunken bathtubs help Wes grow carnivorous plants like the Venus flytrap and the pitcher plant. In addition to experimental plants, Wes also grows more traditional trees, shrubs, and flowers, but on a larger scale. From spring to late fall, the garden blooms and changes. While most gardeners plant annuals in the spring, Wes waits until late summer, since the large variety of other flowers provides color until then. Wes is particularly proud of his rose garden. Many of the varieties are older ones, introduced after World War II.
I have started many of them from cuttings. Many of them root surprisingly easily from cuttings. And it takes the plants several years to build up size, but they make often a better plant than the grafted plants.
Wes has also taken an interest in daylilies, which typically bloom in late June and July. He wanted a variety that would bloom in late August and September, so he's developed his own hybrid after years of trial and error.
They're not nearly as fancy and as diverse as the typical mid-season ones, but I figure, well, dozens and dozens of people have been working on these mid-season ones, and they've been doing it certainly for at least 50 years, and I don't feel so badly that the mid-season ones are just a little fancier than what I have for my late ones. But I'm making some progress. I can see a difference in them.
On any given day throughout the year, unless it's too cold, Wes can be found working alone in the garden. He said he's not a TV watcher, so this is a better alternative and a more pleasant way to spend his time. He's even devised a simple way for people to get a hold of him if he's out in the garden. A ring of the bell will signal your arrival. As far as expansion goes, Wes says that 5 acres is enough for him to handle, but he always leaves room to try something new each year. Public tours of the garden happen every year on Memorial Weekend at the Garden Ramble, a fundraiser for the Coles County Historical Society. It's a must for any gardening enthusiast. After spending time with Wes, one thing I realized is that he's very modest about his accomplishments. He's worked primarily as a one-man operation over the years and has created one of the most treasured and important gardens in the area.